Have you heard of Paru Itagaki? She writes manga, you know, those Japanese comics I cover from time to time. Well, actually pretty often now that I think about it. Either way, if you know who she is, there is one word that comes to mind whenever you think of her. And if you don't know who she is, let me tell you now. Paru Itagaki is many things. An amazing artist, an amazing writer. But above all of that, she's weird. Just so weird. Like, she wrote a short manga about a woman who always gets nosebleeds whenever she touches a man or anything dirty. Or how her most recent long-running manga is about Japan turning pets into furries to solve their population crisis. Do you know Beastars? That one story that's about, a whole lot? That's actually her most popular work, and it's actually her mildest stuff. That's right. This is Paru Itagaki at her most tame. This! I know that sounds insane, but I'm not describing any of her work wrong, and I know this is going to sound even more insane, but it's actually peak. That being said, let me introduce Itagaki proper. If you do follow manga, which I imagine you do if you're watching this, then you might recognize the name Itagaki. Not specifically from Paru, but from her dad, Keisuke Itagaki. The fake name a certain Soul Reaper uses while writing manga. A name that has appeared proudly on every volume of Baki the Grappler. And suddenly, so much about Paru makes so much more sense. Because Baki isn't weird. It's insane. Absolutely mind-fuckingly insane. You've almost certainly seen pages of it on Twitter or whatever. It's that weird martial arts manga with the wacky proportions, the one where they eat invisible food and sexually assault presidents. The weirdest part about that last tidbit isn't even that it happened once, but that it's tradition at this point. I do find it funny how you can tell that Itagaki-sensei really liked Obama. Wait, what am I doing? This is about the daughter, not the father. I need to focus back in. Seeing her dad, you may think he's the reason she decided to become a mangaka, but Itagaki-sensei, Paru, this is going to get really confusing, isn't it? She actually studied film in school, and it was only in 2013 that she actually published her first manga at her college's art festival. A doujinshi, or doujin, which is Japanese for independent work, under the name of Beast Complex, which was published in 3 volumes with 3 chapters per volume. If you read Beastars, you'll get a sense of deja vu, since Beast Complex follows a gray wolf named Legoshi falling in love with the white rabbit. Oh, damn it! I guess I'm turning into Elmer Fudd, falling in love with the white rabbit Haru. But that's pretty much where the similarities stop, because here Legoshi works as a stylist assistant for a fashion magazine, and Haru works in a cafe. That's right, the story doesn't take place in high school. He never even nearly kills her either. Rather, all he does is help her get some flour. This may seem like a radical shock, but Beastars was heavily based on Beast Complex. Some of these fundamental changes were actually based on the change in audience, as Itagaki-sensei explains in this interview she did with Otaquest Connect 5 years ago.
なんかさっきも言ったように、そのビースターズは割と最初はその少年漫画にするために作った設定がたくさんあって、学園ものにするとか、その主人公をそのまだなんか思春期の男の子にするとか、なんかそういうなんか少年漫画のための策略みたいなのがどんどんなくなっていって、よりなんか最初から私が描きたかったものに戻ってきているような気がして、なんか今はすごい描きやすいですね、私。
You can totally feel the more salient approach to the manga, especially since it focuses less on those big, shocking, high-impact moments Beastars is known for. Rather, it creates a good, consistent tone that suits something much shorter than the 196-chapter long Beastars. I also think the art here is worth talking about because you can definitely feel how much earlier it was made. She'd already decided her art style. If you compare this to the beginning of Beastars, they don't look dissimilar at all. However, here, it is much rougher and looser, and even more playful in a sense. The general composition of the chapters, the way the art and panels are organized on the page, is done with a lot of freedom, like giving individual panels dedicated to expressions. And because the manga often doesn't have backgrounds, it puts a lot more focus on what the characters are doing. And instead of using cross-hatching or screen tones or even just harsh shadows, all the shading is done in gray marker. It makes this doujin really feel like it's its own thing, despite how much other works would eventually derive from it. The only shame and understandable downside is that it never got an official translation, but an unofficial one is being worked on. The next of Itagaki Sensei's works has a name you might recognize from just now, since it was also called Beast Complex, but it has an entirely different story and format. Who here is sick of me defining the word anthology? Too bad, I'm doing it again. An anthology series is a story structure where a single work is comprised of singular, smaller pieces that are connected through theme, idea, character, setting, or timeline. Love, Death, and Robots alongside Cowboy Bebop are examples of anthology series you may know. My personal favorite anthology series is, well, Beast Complex, but my second favorite is Kekai Sensen. Beast Complex was Itagaki Sensei's first serialized work, running in Shonen Jump Champion from 2016 to 2019. And then it was picked back up in 2021 for a mini serialization and has thus become something Itagaki Sensei occasionally works on from time to time. What's crazy is that this series is canon to Beastars, making this a prequel to the one we all know and love. But keep in mind, she picked this series back up in 2021. After Beastars had already finished. And we do get chapters not only set after Beastars ended following Legoshi and Haru, but even one smack dab in the middle of Beastars following Legoshi and Sagwan. Meaning Beast Complex is somehow not only a prequel, not only a sequel, but somehow also an interquel, all at the same time. I know that might sound insane, but I'd like to remind you of who we're dealing with here. I've gotta say that Beast Complex is probably my favorite manga, point blank. It's just peak after peak after peak. Personally, I think Beast Complex is where Itagaki Sensei's writing style developed the most into the one we'd become familiar with in Beastars, where the strength comes from the build-up that leads to these super punchy moments. Like Legoshi handing in Tim's letter or almost eating Haru, Beastars thrives on those moments that just stay forever in your mind. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but Beast Complex's decision to be an anthology series, i.e. a series of one-shots, also manages to remove Beastars' biggest flaw, that being the struggle with the follow-through. Think of the issues in the latter half of Beastars, how certain writing choices had some downsides that some fans didn't like, to put it mildly. Because Beast Complex quite literally doesn't have time for a follow-through, the issue is entirely kicked to the curb. We're able to just get the build-up and payoff and none of the consequences thereafter. So we get the foreplay and the sex, but none of the issues of the unplanned pregnancy, so to speak. That was certainly one of the metaphors, or well, similes of all time. It's also worth noting that these stories really seem to distill a lot of the thematic ideas that reoccur in her works. The most obvious of which being that she really loves coming-of-age stories. Most of Beast Complex is coming-of-age style stories, and Beastars is also a coming-of-age story, and her work after that, Sanda, is also a coming-age story, and even her new one, Taikai No Riisei, seems to be one too. A coming-of-age story is a narrative that focuses on the growth of our protagonist. This growth is often physical alongside emotional and intellectual. Think of Naruto, how he starts out as that troublemaker kid, goes through trials and tribulations over what it means to be a shinobi, and from those lessons he learns to bring peace and become Hokage, actualizing himself as an adult by the end. Beastars, for example, follows Legoshi as he starts out as an inward, awkward teenager, but from meeting Haru, fighting the Shishigumi and Melon, etc., he comes out as an adult, capable of living on his own and outwardly admitting to the world what he is and what he's doing. Beastars is actually an archetypical example of a coming-of-age story, to the point Wikipedia specifically mentions it as one, and those do seem to be what she's very good at, but the second thread of Itagaki's preferred writing subjects is, I'm just gonna come out and say it, it's sex. She likes writing about sex. Just a heads up, I'm about to talk about sex of all things for like a hot minute, and you know YouTube's not gonna like that, so I'm just gonna remind you to like and subscribe, and also that I have a Ko-fi and Patreon link in the description. There is an entire chapter dedicated to Haru finally getting Legoshi to hit that shit, and I'm not even joking. She goes to Juno and is like, how do I make him wanna fuck me? And it's not even the only or even the best chapter in Beast Complex to deal with such subjects. I talked about it briefly before, I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, but there's one story in the manga called The Tiger and the Alpaca. While it's not explicitly stated to be about sex, the panels, the framing, and the fact that it's in a massage parlor, of all things, means you get the idea. It's an interesting story about power dynamics and social dynamics conflicting with personal desire. It's the story about a tigress who works in an herbivore-dominated company and all the social rules and the bowing and scraping that comes from that. Yet, when she's dominated by a herbivore at the massage parlor, she comes out better for it. To borrow a metaphor from that old video, just because the cat doesn't like being forced into the box doesn't mean it doesn't like the box. A tiger doesn't hate submitting to herbivores, she hates being forced to do it. It's an interesting commentary on things like consent and how the same event feels entirely different with or without it, like boxing versus assault. These themes of sex, or at least Itagaki sensei's willingness to talk about sexual topics, is actually something that's touched upon in the autobiographical manga she wrote called Paru's Graffiti. I'll get to that manga later in this video, but know that it's a great read. For now, we got to deal with the big one, the manga that got many awards and put her on the map. The one, the only, Beastars. What can I say about Beastars that hasn't already been said by more than a few people? The story follows Legoshi, a high schooler at Cherryton Academy, as he gets involved with the rabbit Haru, the head of the drama club, and drama in general, Louis, in acts of predation going on at school. This then expands out to him leaving the school, getting an apartment, meeting new people like the Seal Sagwan and the current beast Yaya, and the hybrid serial killer Melon. I'm skipping over a lot for the sake of time, but it's these two halves that people usually think about the series in, with a definite preference for the schoolyard days. And to be frank, I see why. The first half is pretty well done for the most part, and culminates with the ending of the thread that started the entire series. The second half is now forced to handle the part of her writing where she's at her weakest, that being the follow-through. On one hand, having him leave school is a fascinating way to expand what we know about the world and challenge our protagonist's worldview, and it does do that. It even establishes new stakes and new challenges, but it also leaves stuff behind or practically forgets it entirely. The series is called Beastars, and the topic does remain relevant. One of the major characters in the second half is the current Beastar, but do you remember that council meeting thingy? Where they decide the next Beastar will be the one who catches the predator? Remember how Legoshi did that? Remember how they then gave the title to Louis and nothing really came of that either? What about Rokume, the security guard who's pretty much only seen once? That's the example that gets me the most, but the one that gets talked about the most often are the stands or whatever those things were. Even for a series as weird as Beastars, that was kind of the moment where it jumped the shark and got too far from its OG premise. The school setting was gone, and we've drifted super far from a lot of the cast that we knew. And the overall ending was certainly unexpected. I don't think it's bad personally, but it's not something you'd even remotely expect after reading the first half. It's a solid ending to the second, but it doesn't line up with the first, which was what most people liked. It creates this divided series that's kind of weird but not in the usual Itagaki way. Some say it should have stopped after he left school, but there were too many unresolved issues to end it then, I think. But then part 2 just kind of made more and introduced new concept after new concept until it just ended. The series never quite felt like it was heading towards an end because its world and concepts just kept expanding and expanding until it just did end. Like I said, it's not the beginning or the middle that's the problem, it's following through with what's set up in those parts. Okay, so originally I had a line about this at the end of Beastars, going back to Beast Complex, we already covered that, so let's do Paru's Graffiti. But turns out there's a new chapter of the original Beast Complex. Yeah, a new one came out right as I'm making this because fuck my stupid baka life. And it's not like I could just ignore the chapter because it is fascinating in the grander context of things. Like from the start, Haru was planned to be older than him, being 28 while he's 23, and remember the time Legoshi shaved his fur? That's an idea all the way from back here. The previous chapters didn't really have ideas that are so clearly reused in Beastars. And we get some unique ideas that weren't present in Beastars itself, like Legosi's past love life in elementary and high school, which both end in catastrophic failure that's typical of the wolf. And even the detail of not showing your fangs to herbivores is a similar thread of world building shared between the two works. It's so strange because even though a lot of the details are different, so much of it feels so similar to Beastars. Like, Legosi's personality is pretty much the same between the two versions. He's terribly awkward, but so well-mannered. Like, I generally have to ask you to read it for yourself because you won't get what I'm saying unless you do. And because I do really need to move on, because this part of the video is much like your birth, that is to say, it was unplanned. Now let's get back to what I should have been talking about, Paru's Graffiti, a short-lived autobiography running from 2019 to 2020. It was mostly a collection of doodled recollections and moments from Paru's life. They don't have any real theme or idea, just a bunch of weird things that make Paru Itagaki Paru Itagaki. A big focus is unsurprisingly her family, from her mother to her sisters to her late grandfather and even her famous dad. It's a very humanizing manga filled with all the odds and ends and personal details you'd otherwise wouldn't know. Like the time Paru was in grade school and the teacher told them to draw the ocean, but unbeknownst to that poor woman, Paru Itagaki had just seen the movie Jaws. While the teacher didn't put the artwork up, Mrs. Itagaki actually kept the piece, so it's a very adorable story. Then there's also how she earned cool kid points at school by knowing about dirty and lewd things thanks to overhearing her older sister and whatnot. So yeah, she's always loved talking about sex even before she was writing about it. There's even the goofy of goofiest parts of her life, like that she once worked in a maid cafe. Or that she fancies herself a balcon sommelier, because she just really likes balconies. But then there are moments of introspection, like how she always asks people who are married if they live together simply because her parents didn't. She even waxes about getting married and wonders what her potential husband will think of Beastars, which I find infinitely hilarious. Though she did get married in 2023 if I recall. This brings us to the next big project she worked on, a small manga, and I do mean small manga, called Drip Drip or Bota Bota from 2020 to 2021. It's all about a woman who really wants to have sex, but it's not for the reason you'd expect. The reason for the manga's name, and the reason she wants to have sex, is because every time the protagonist tries to do something or touches something or someone who's filthy or dirty, she gets a nosebleed. It's a legitimate problem. She has to disinfect every dollar she gets in a comical fashion. She goes through half a dozen different plans to try and get herself in bed with guy after guy, trying to use that as some way to cure herself of her nosebleeds. In the great Itagaki fashion, from father to daughter, this series is weird as fuck, but is also one of the greatest manga I've ever read. Another big thread of this manga is female sexuality, but I'll save more of that for one of her future mangas because that's probably where it's at its most prevalent. I actually really like the ending to Bota Bota, so I won't spoil it for you. I won't say it comes out of left field, it's more the opposite, like a mine you know she has to step on. And I may be showing my ass a bit here, but I think the protagonist is, well, to die for. The way she's drawn at the conclusion of every chapter is just gorgeous. Filled with mystique as she's covered with blood. I don't know why, but it makes her very pretty. I actually want to take a step back and go out of order to talk about two things I neglected to mention before, because I didn't know they existed till now, adding another thing I need to add to this video to make it take longer and put a delay on it, but whatever! Because what are the odds of two one-shots from 2018 and 2019 getting translations when her full finished mangas can't get ones? Apparently, it's pretty damn high. The first one is a really simple little manga called Manga Noodles about one of Itagaki-sensei's professors in the time she worked at a noodles place. It's a short read with an interesting little narrative. It honestly feels like a Paru's Graffiti chapter, but with more finished art. If you've got like 5 minutes to kill, just give this one a read, especially if you like how she draws. The second is more interesting, and it's called Whitebeard and Boing. It's about a sex worker who gets a strange customer, an old man with a big white beard who turns out to be Santa Claus. It's kind of cute, being somehow yet another coming-of-age story from Paru Itagaki, but this one is kind of told in retrospect. Because the sex worker is an adult, she's already grown, and now they're discussing what it was like growing up and stuff. It's weird, yada yada yada, but a similar idea was worked on again in Itagaki-sensei's following series that's getting an anime pretty soon. Sanda. Sanda ran from 2021 to 2024, though it's only just now getting an official English translation starting in September of 2025. The plot is all about Sanda Kazushige, a middle schooler with a big secret. that his classmate Shiori Fuyumura really wants to abuse. You see, he's a descendant of Santa Claus, and every time he wears red, he transforms into the big jolly bastard, and she needs Santa's help for one thing: to find their supposedly dead classmate Ono, but Fuyumura is far from the only person after Sanda. Okay, now I'm gonna give you a second to ground yourself, because I know what I just explained sounds insane, so here. And now I'm gonna give you another second to ground yourself, because in Paru's graffiti she reveals that she has a fetish for Santa, making Whitebeard and Boyne and the fact that she spent 4 years of her life writing entire Santa manga much funnier. Just look at these designs. You can tell she was drawing this manga with one hand. You grounded yourself? You did? Do it again, because Sanda only gets crazier from here. What I really love about this manga is actually the setting, because it takes place in Japan in 2080 when the population crisis has gotten so bad, crisis is an understatement. And so society has begun to hold youth higher than God and go out of its way to preserve and coddle it at all cost. We're told kids are given growth suppressants and all told not to sleep because that's when they release growth hormones. Even the food they eat at the festival is designed with anti-aging properties in mind. It's this super unique dystopia that works super well for a coming-of-age story, because there are so many wacky and weird and horrifying ways the setting can express itself. My favorite being Principal Ushibu, who's done over 100 different surgeries and procedures to hide his age. I'm talking to the point of excessive collagen injection and growth hormones that leave him monstrous, downright unable to be hurt by blades because that's how stretchy his skin is. Because he's more than just an antagonist, because he values youth and the school he runs, and anything that disrupts it instantly gets on his shit list, Santa be damned. And the coming-of-age style themes don't even end with the transition between youth to teen, but also with adults like Hyoto and Yagiuta, both of which were members of the Red Robe Special Forces sent to hunt Sanda. But they end up falling too deeply into their undercover jobs as teachers, and they end up growing further as people. After Hyoto gets shot, he visits her in the hospital and stuff, leading Hyoto to think he has a crush on her. After all, it's only natural for it to happen, especially since they come from such similar circumstances. But the thing is that she's wrong. Hyoto is always so cold and distant, not just to other people, but to her own self, that she has no idea that she's just projecting. We have no idea if he's in love with her, but she is definitely in love with him. It's silly and stupid and insane, but that's part of what makes me like this manga so much. One of the lessons Itagaki sensei seems to have learned from Beastars is that you can't jump the shark if you kill and eat it in the first chapter. When things are so absurd from the get-go, it sets this tone that allows her to really do what she will with the story. Beastars, for all of its weirdness, was always kind of realistic. One of the big cruxes of the series was carnivores and herbivores and the differences between them. It went through a lot of trouble to explain what carnivores eat and how their stuff is made with all the animal products and etc. But when Santa introduces a dude with salt-based superpowers, you remind yourself this is a manga about a kid who turns into Santa due to wearing red, and that he also has a banging hot mom who does the same thing. And that this tiny old lady is actually the chairman of the academy, outranking Ushibu, who's just the principal and physically overpowering her ex-lover in a fight. Oh yeah, the two of them are exes. They split over disagreements regarding aging and stuff, but despite that, Ushibu still maintains that she's beautiful, which is really cute, but also really weird. The shark's been gone from chapter 1, so who cares that this dude is 200% salt? I can't really speak on how well the follow-through has been improved in this manga, since it's unfinished from the official side, and the unofficial side is still unfinished as well. And it's certainly not like I can read Japanese to remedy that, so... A similar issue is actually present in the last two mangas I want to talk about, Ushimitsu Gao and Taikai No Riisei. Starting with Ushimitsu Gao, or Her Face at the Witching Hour, it's about Megumi Sano, a 33-year-old housewife who begins to have an affair with a ghost. I'm gonna repeat myself because you probably thought you misheard me. It's about Megumi Sano, a 33-year-old housewife who begins to have an affair with a ghost. I bet you forgot that Itagaki sensei wrote a ghost cook manga, but I didn't. This manga, in the usual Itagaki sensei fashion, takes a very weird concept and uses it to tell a very meaningful story. It's one about human connections and seemingly communication. I say seemingly because the manga is complete, but the unofficial translation is not. I'm also really struggling to find images to put on screen for this one because the manga has like full frontal nudity and explicit scenes. So instead of having my channel get like nuked from orbit or some shit, just enjoy whatever footage I put up. I'm not sure what it will be. Probably gameplay, maybe not. We'll see. This is of course the manga that has women's sexuality at the forefront of its experience. I do find it interesting that it's not just liberating but also something that can be toxic and destructive, as you can also see for men. Like, the ghost drains her life force as she sleeps with him, and despite her consent being enthusiastic, she's literally wasting away. But this affair is also liberating in that Megami has found something she wants to do and is actively getting out of the house, being more than just a housewife and gaining more experience to become a completer person. If you're into Ghost, then by all means, this manga is to your taste, but I genuinely do find the writing to be fascinating. Going back to what I said about communication, there's a moment where the husband and the ghost talk about a movie Megami just watched. And as the audience, we're left unaware of what our actual thoughts are. Is the husband right in that Megami was just parroting some generic ideas? Or were those generally Megami's thoughts and he had no idea what she actually thinks and feels? He doesn't know, and neither do we. It's just an incredibly effective bit of storytelling to get the audience into the husband's headspace. It's not often I find an erotic manga where the plot seems more important than the other parts, but I really like this one. And now we get to Itagaki Sensei's current ongoing manga, Taikai No Riisei, also known as The Whys and Wherefores of Taika. A manga that I imagine only exists because she was thinking to herself, man, it's been a while since I last drew a furry. Much like Sanda, this manga is all about Japan's population problem, but instead of getting really weird about childhood, they get really weird about pets. Turning them into furries to make them citizens. They go to school and have jobs and it's hella weird. But what do you do when your pet kills someone? And what do you do when said murder pet gets turned into a furry? That is the question Al faces herself with after her dog Taika kills her dad. It's a wonderfully insane concept that can really only come from the mind of the person who wrote Beastars. The manga has been going on for a while, but you know what hasn't been going on? A translation. I can only read 4 chapters, so there's not much I can say, but from the stuff I see, the manga just keeps getting crazier and crazier. Sorry that this part is so short, but there's only like 4 chapters of a long-running manga for me to cover. I can only do so much, you know? I did talk about it briefly before in a link that should be appearing in the top right or something. And with that, we are officially done with Paru Itagaki's entire bibliography. I plan to have like a conclusion or something to go at the end of this video, but I just read 10 manga in 2 weeks, so fuck it. Call me a fucking idiot, but I didn't expect this video to be half an hour long. Like, I genuinely thought I could somehow cover 10 manga in under like, what, 15 minutes? So, yeah, I guess I'm just an idiot and this is my fault. Anyway, Patreon shoutout time. For 3 stars, have special thanks to Choron, Sky King 64, 80 somewhere again, the Phaser, Chow Venice, Haribumi 78, The Good Old Days, Angie Stassi. For 4 stars, we have McCoy's Law and Oddly Awe, The Blazing Inspiration. And for our Super D2 special 5-star shoutouts, we have Hodari Lion, The Morning Sun. Thank you for watching. Do be sure to like and subscribe. As always, this is your Rose Fury signing out.